Today at Haven's Cafe, we are going to discuss Trump's war on Iran, the markets, finance, gold, and more. Okay, so grab your overpriced designer coffee, grab a cup of tea, grab a scotch if that's what you need, settle in, and let's chat for a few minutes. It appears that Trump is now escalating the war on Iran way to the next level. Okay, he's just bombed Karga Island, which is where Iran's kind of oil exports, its refining, takes place. Okay, some major escalation. And it appears that beyond that, he's going to do the stupidest thing of all next. All right, he appears to be positioning U.S. Marines to launch some kind of amphibious takeover of the Strait of Hormuz. Or maybe, as he has been promising but has yet to deliver, to try and escort tankers and ships through the strait. Okay? So, let's imagine what happens next. Trump starts a land and sea war in a tiny strait in the Middle East. Okay? How do you think this is going to play out? My expectation, sadly, is that it's going to be a bloodbath. Okay? It's going to be a bloodbath in human terms, but it's also going to be a bloodbath in the markets. Okay? As Trump escalates this war, the price of oil is going to keep skyrocketing. Okay? And as the price of oil keeps skyrocketing, we are going to see an inflationary wave, just like we did during COVID. Do you remember those times? I think we all remember the world before COVID economically, okay, and after COVID, how prices skyrocketed, and they stayed at this astronomical level. Are you ready for another round of that? Because that's what's on the cards. We are now facing, the other day, the International Energy Agency already called this the greatest energy shock of all. Okay, greatest oil shock in history. Now Trump is escalating the war even beyond that. Okay? So as he does things like bomb Karga Island, it's very likely that Iran is going to retaliate even further by targeting oil infrastructure in the Gulf. Okay? If he attempts kind of an amphibious takeover of the Strait of Hormuz, there was an article in the FT the other day which said that, ship captains and insurers and whatnot regard these ships as sitting ducks, which they are. That strait is 20 miles wide. You can imagine what happens if a couple of ships get hit by a couple of, mines or small missiles. Bang, the strait is blocked. Okay? So Iran is likely to retaliate. Iran is not a country that is likely to surrender. If you study history, this is not a country that has surrendered to anybody in thousands of years. Okay? Trump and his guys, as we all know, are inept, incompetent, and clueless. All right? They've launched this disastrous, reckless, illegal war. They didn't have a plan for how it was to play out. And now they're doing the Trumpian thing, which is to say, don't forget, they double-crossed everybody. Okay, so Iran was sitting there at the table negotiating with them. And look, I'm not a fan of Iran. I'm not a fan of fundamentalists and fanatics. It's not about that. It's about diplomacy, the world. Okay? Trump double-crossed them and started a war in the middle of the negotiations. But he didn't just double-cross Iran, right? He double-crossed all of America's allies in the region. He double-crossed Europe, who is now facing surging energy prices. He double-crossed Asia, which is now facing surging energy prices. So Trump double-crossed the world. Okay? And we should have all seen that coming. Now, to get himself out of these situations, Trump likes to escalate, right? He's an abuser. He likes intimidation tactics. So his game here appears to be, he has two options, right? One is that he can cut and run and declare victory. That's another very Trump move, right? We won, guys, even though, right, clearly this war is not being won. The other one is to double down. And it appears that he's taken the latter option. So he bombed Karga Island, major escalation, and now he appears to be preparing for an amphibious assault on the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? All of these things, I think, are just going to make Iran retaliate further. Okay? And retaliation from Iran means shutting down the world's oil supplies. Okay? Attacking oil in the Gulf, really choking off the Strait of Hormuz, choking off, other waterways on the other side in the Red Sea, etc. Okay? And as that happens, price of oil, price of energy skyrockets. And that's beginning to affect everything now. Have you noticed? Okay, so farmers are now seriously panicked. Price of fertilizer is going up. Okay, airlines beginning to raise their airfares. People feeling the pain at the pump. But at the end of the day, what this does, something even more than that. It causes a huge inflationary shock. And if you follow in the news, I think it was the energy minister of Qatar, one of the Gulf states, I can't remember exactly which one, warned of COVID-style effects last week. He said, if this goes on, we are going to see not just an inflationary wave, but shortages. Because shipping cannot get through, number one, but also because factories will not be able to, meet demand as energy prices rise. So all of this is a big deal, all right? Now, I want everybody to stay safe. Number one, when it comes to finance and investments, cash out of this market. Stay out of this market. Unless you are very, very good and you know exactly what you're doing, it is all but impossible to win in this market, okay? Yes, there are short-term things you can do if you want, right? You can do the typical kind of like defense and energy kind of thing, okay? That's not really investment. That's short-term speculation, all right? It's going to be good for maybe 6 months, tops, okay? Okay, so you have to be very careful about that. And you need to draw red lines around things with your money. There's a big difference between investment over the long term and short-term speculation. Unless you're very, very good, you should not be wrapped up in short-term speculation, okay? Minimum time horizon for good investment, 2 to 5 years, okay? So be safe. I want everybody cashed out of this market. Now, I'm not your financial advisor. It's not financial advice, okay? Like I often say, I'm just a guy who's, been ahead of the curve with this stuff. I'm exactly right when I say I am. Economist, I've written the books, done the speaking tours, blah, 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 okay? So my kind of thinking is that safety is the best bet right now, okay? Everything in the markets is tanking right now. Trump has, and we've discussed this, right? Trump has successfully crashed every stock and bond market in the world, okay? And like I said, there's short-term bets to be made, but there's a big difference between investment and speculation. You should not be making those short-term bets unless you really, really know what you're doing, because you're not going to be able to time the other side very well, okay? So everybody stay safe. Trump is escalating this thing, and it's now spiraling way, way out of control. Let's spend a second now discussing what happens as Trump escalates, all right? It's not just Iran's retaliation that really we should be thinking about. It is also the rest of the world, okay? So Iran obviously, supplies oil to China, okay? Through China, makes its way to Asia in various forms, Not necessarily as oil, but as goods, as products, as finance, okay? And as Trump escalates this out of control, America is going to be skating around the edge of the abyss. The moment is going to come where even America's allies begin selling off American assets. And then the moment is going to come where America's not so friendly nations like China begin selling off American assets. That pressure has been building over the last year, right? We've talked about it a lot. This is going to push it to the brink. The world is going to say to itself, do we want to be bankrolling a country that has caused the greatest energy crisis in history? Do we want to be bankrolling a country that is raising our own prices and crashing our stock and bond markets? Is that a wise bet for anybody? The answer obviously is no, right? So the world has been hesitant to pull the trigger, is waiting to see if some kind of sanity will prevail here, right? Nobody wants a fire sale of assets. But this is going to push things to the brink. Because now the responsibility for this energy shock and the huge inflationary wave that is all but sure to follow lies with Trump. It lies with America. And the rest of the world now has to begin to think in hard and serious economic and financial terms, which is to say, hey, if you crashed our stock market by 10, 20%, maybe we need to sell 10, 20% of our American assets, not to punish you, just to balance the books, just to keep things even. Do you see what I mean? This is just basic finance mechanism, right? It should have happened by now. It's not happening because the world is still in shock, all right? But it is increasingly likely to happen every day now. That is one reason why American stock markets, every day this goes on, are now at severe risk of a crash, okay? So you need to be careful with this stuff. That's why I want you guys cashed out, all right? Do not take the risk. Trump is burning down the world economy, okay? You should not be in this mess right now, okay? And for those of you who are even subscribers, I'm going to update the portfolio so those of you who want to be a little bit more aggressive can actually invest a little bit in good bets in this situation, okay? But we'll cover that in a separate video. All right, thank you for listening. That's a lot for now. Comments, questions, leave them below.